I want to announce that we have added 38 new items to be subject to tax on food like chicken, eggs, bread, bananas, apples, oranges, broccoli, onions, and potatoes. These items are being added for at least a 6-month period on price-controlled drugs, providing additional relief to Bahamians.
And those changes run the gamut from wage increases to new price controls on grocery items and fresh offensives on the thorny issue of crime. COVID-19 backlash, the government has responded with relief on 2 major fronts.
Tonight, I'm announcing that the country's new minimum wage will be too high of this year. For minimum wage earners in the private sector, the increase will begin in a little less than 3 months, in January of the coming year, allowing employers time to prepare for the increased expense. Individuals in the United States are able to purchase guns there legally, then smuggle them here, where they are used in shootings on our streets and in our neighborhoods. We have a formal working arrangement with the American law enforcement, working with the American intelligence to share information to stop this flow of arms across our borders.
Bahamian business is also a big part of the equation. The government will invest millions to ensure that Bahamian businesses thrive.
During this term, for the next generation of entrepreneurs, data and market analysis, finance, business management, these skills should be taught much more widely. We have to expand our idea of
including a groundbreaking for a new $200 million hospital in Grand Bahama by year's end, and the launch of a new solar farm for New Providence in the next 12 months, providing 25 to 30. Press now.
Media colleagues, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, as well as those joining us online. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing, where we are delighted to give you the information that speakers for today.
Thank you, Julian. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to all of you joining us live. Welcome to another week here at the Office of the Prime Minister, where we're here to update you on the work that the Davis administration is doing. It's on a new initiative just announced by the administration, and that is, of course, to make housing more affordable to Bahamians and to give you greater access to housing. And so our Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable Joe, that will work, how you can have access to it and how you can qualify for it. We're also going to continue, this is National Youth Month, and of course we've been focusing on some of the events and activities surrounding the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, and so the Minister is back again with us to talk about a special sporting motorsports Olympics that the Bahamas will be actually participating in worldwide. So some great news to talk to you about that, and of course our vendor highlight for the week, Cupcakes by Q. So an exciting press conference today, and of course we're going to take all of your other questions that you may have for the administration from me today. I came armed and ready to answer those questions. The Honorable Jo Beth Colby Davis to talk to us about the exciting rent-to-own program. Minister Colby Davis.
Thank you. Initiative. Place to Call Home is a multi-island, sustainable, financially viable housing solution administered by the Department of Housing for working individuals, employed and self-employed Bahamians. In the first pilot phase, a Place to Call Home initiative would be on the island of Abaco. Other islands will include New Providence, Grand Bahama, North Andros, North Eleuthera, San Salvador, Exuma, and Kime. Over an agreed fixed period, not longer than 36 months. Rent will be paid to the Department of Housing. A portion of the rent will go towards a down payment for the mortgage, property maintenance, and insurance costs. The monthly rent payment will be paid to the Department of Housing. Successful applicant coaching. A number of housing models will be used in a Place to Call Home. The models will range from 2-bedroom, 1-bath to 3-bedroom, 2-bath models. A public communication will be released by the Ministry of Transport and Housing advising Bahamians when to register, and interested applicants must register at www.mothbahamas.com. Customer service representatives via email and telephone. Further information will be provided closer to the opening of the registration period. At registration, employed applicants must upload a valid passport, national insurance card, job letter, national insurance card, business license, and most recent bank account statement. The Department of Housing reserves the right to ask for additional information if required. Applications will be reviewed and vetted by the Department of Housing and the Department of Housing's Advisory Committee, which is comprised of expertise from both the private and public sector. Contribution in the House of Assembly. Successful applicants will be required to sign an occupancy agreement, which would form the legal basis of the agreement with the Department of Housing. A Place to Call Home is a structured initiative that will involve numerous stakeholders, including financial institutions. The initiative has considered how it will work. Example, Mary Johnson is a teacher in Abaco. She's interested in enrolling in A Place to Call Home. Mary registers online with the Department of Housing, and Mary is interested in a 3-bedroom home, the cost of which is $110,000. Third financial institution is the Bahamas Mortgage Corp. At the Department of Housing, the customer service team will tailor Mary's solution with the Mortgage Corp requirements, which requires a minimum down payment of 5%, which will be $5,500 of the $110,000. Mary will sign the occupancy agreement. Mary will make her monthly payment to the Department of Housing rent-to-own payment account. Mary will make a reservation deposit, which is based on her preferred housing model. The reservation deposit will serve as a security deposit spread over 12 months, and $275 towards administration, insurance, and maintenance. This would result in Mary making a monthly payment of $733. It is important to note that the funds for the mortgage down payment will be held in escrow. During the occupancy phase, Mary will be in relationship managed by a customer, Bahamas Mortgage Corp, which they will be updated periodically of her performance during the rent-to-own portion of her initiative. Mary will be required to attend a homeowner education course, which will provide information on mortgage financing and share best practices to maintain and upkeep ownership, and a mortgage will begin as Mary would have secured the down payment requirement by the Bahamas Mortgage Corp. And it is important to note that the specific payments and the prices will be based on the home selected and the financing period selected. Will open the first week in November. Applications will only be received through the website. That is www.mothbahamas.com. This is to ensure full compliance with internal controls and quality assurance. A communication will advise members of the public on the opening in a professional and transparent manner. The program will be financially sustainable and viable. The program will be subject to audits and financial reporting. Bahamians are advised to take advantage of this initiative. We continue to encourage Bahamians to save a portion of their monthly income, consumer loans, and to create monthly financial budgets. Having a monthly financial budget could assist in better financial management, such as curbing or eliminating unnecessary spending. Bahamians will be required to register at www.mothbahamas.com. As stated earlier, the open date of online registration will be in Housing, the Bahamas. At the Department of Housing, our main goal is to expand the path to home ownership for Bahamians. Questions?
Yes, morning, Ms.
Morning.
First question is, how many Bahamians will be able to participate in this initiative?
Bahamas, those islands that I called off. So that's the pilot, and if we're able to get it on stream and rolled out well, then we can see a great expansion of the program.
Are you able to say how much this initiative costs the ministry?
Well, because we're still doing the pricing and the cost adjustments, and definitely it's going to be correlated with the packages of the persons entered in, we would be able to provide that at a later date. Okay?
Any reason why you chose those islands specifically?
We were getting a lot of queries from the persons getting back on the job. This would be a great initiative to help them still achieve the dream of becoming home ownerships. Additionally, we have a lot of self-employed persons that live on the family island, and it's been quite difficult for them to secure financing to get a mortgage, but they've been doing quite well in their businesses, and so this is also good to help and assist them. And of course, New Providence have a great demand for housing, so anything that the Department of Housing offers as an initiative would also be offered in New Providence. We don't select financial institutions. We have been doing a lot of processing and approvals over the last couple of weeks and months, and persons have been bringing their bank approvals from various financial institutions, which we accept.
How will matters such as payment delinquency or, say, persons part of the program?
So in our occupancy agreement, our clauses deal with matters that address that. We deal with that directly with the persons once they sign.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank
Minister.
you.
And to give you more information, the ministry has put together a little information video, and so we want to play that so that those of you who are watching and those who are here can get more information. You can go ahead and roll that video.
Doubled in size, growing from 181,518 in 1973 to 400,417 in 2021. This growth has had a profound impact on housing. Over the years, we have not built enough homes to meet the demand. According to the Inter-American Development Bank, the Bahamas would need 3,600 new homes every year to $1,187 in 2012 to $1,907 in 2021, an increase of $720 per month over a 9-year period. Around the region, innovative, affordable housing plans and solutions are being implemented, and the Bahamas must not be left behind. The Department of Viable Housing Solution, administered by the Department of Housing with oversight by a qualified and experienced team of public and private sector Bahamians. Interested applicants should register at www.mothbahamas.com. The government of the Bahamas views homeownership as a means of empowering Bahamians and is committed to expanding housing solutions, giving hardworking Bahamians a place to call home.
Needs, and of course you can reach the Ministry of Housing and Transport for anything else that you need on that. Before we bring up the Minister responsible for Youth, Sports and Culture to talk about some of the initiatives, we want to keep it on all of the hard items there. So I'm going to open the floor right now for your questions on any of the other pertinent issues with the administration that I can take for you, and then we'll talk about the Ministry of Youth. So let's begin with our Tribune. No, I didn't see them. Tribune, no. JCN, Keel.
Good day. With the recent rise as announced of the minimum wage rising from $2.10 to $2.60, there have been some businesses that have, understandably so, criticized about the timing and about having to.
Wage will not take effect until January. So they have the rest of this year to put their affairs in order for the increase. This is nothing that we're just announcing to the private sector without their knowledge. We've been in touch with the business communities. We've talked to the major employers, and this is a discussion that's been taking place for some time now. The last time minimum wage entry understands that at some point you're going to expect that level to rise. It's been a discussion that governments, the consecutive governments, have been having. So it's not something that just came out of the hat that businesses are not prepared for. When you hear countries talking about this minimum wage and the need to increase it, as a businessman, one of the things you do is begin thinking, okay, this is eventually going to happen. I need to government has done it retroactive back to July, and so it'll take place immediately for government. But for those companies that need a little extra room to be able to make the adjustments, we believe that time frame gives them enough time. Any additional cost is never a right per se time to do it, but we would hope that going into the holiday seasons where sales are normally up with retailers, it gets busier for ZNS, call upon. Hi.
Yes, I understand the grocery retailers. They are to meet with
Prime Minister on Tuesday. They're giving him an ultimatum.
We've heard about that as well. We've seen some of the postings online where retailers saying because the price margin isn't what they expected, the markups aren't enough or large enough for them, there may be some kind of action. They're threatening to hold some items from the meeting with Prime Minister and the retailers next week. I think it's Tuesday that they're planning to have that meeting. What we're going to convey, and what Prime Minister will convey to them is what I'm going to say to the public, and that is this. When we talk about being able to find relief, food is important for our people. And so there must be a way to be able to manage how we're able to ensure that people can afford to go to the grocery store and purchase goods so that they can have food for them and their families. That's important. But what Prime Minister duties on food? That's specifically so that these retailers and wholesalers can feel some relief themselves, and the consumers hopefully will be passed on that relief. That's just one initiative to allow there to be some balancing of what we've seen happen with inflation. Primarily, Bahamians can only thrive, but they can survive. So while you thrive, we want to make sure our people can survive. And being able to find that balance is what the Prime Minister is doing. That's why he's meeting with them on Tuesday to be able to ensure that actually happens. Any other question, caller? Okay, so let's go to Eyewitness News.
Besides the government's decision to increase minimum wage, and Moody's has also had, I guess, a negative response on that as well. Are there any plans on the government trying to maybe revisit that policy, or maybe change the...
We govern for the people. The people that elected this government are the people. Moody's, like any other agency, is a company. And they make their analysis and assessments based on their financial figures or terms, whatever they do. But they don't govern the Bahamas. An analysis here will tell you that we know how to look and see what we can do. Where is our space? Where is our bargaining power, our borrowing power? The cabinet of the Bahamas gets advice and they make decisions. But you can rest assured that when the government of the Bahamas makes a decision for the Bahamian people, they don't govern the Bahamas. Their concern will be about financial prudence. The government's concern will be about its people. And we find a balance in ensuring that at the end of the day, our people can live and thrive. While we want to have balanced books, we're more concerned about ensuring our people can live in this environment more than it is about what Moody's say we should or should not do to make sure we have a balance sheet. And that's good governance, being able to balance both. And that's what we're doing. Sure.
So is the Bahamas, the government of the Bahamas also interested in being a part already, to be a part of that effort?
We're already in discussions. The Bahamas actually leads a council with CARICOM to look at the affairs of Haiti and figure out from a regional perspective when it comes to Haiti's unrest. And we are concerned about it. And so as we meet, and meetings will take place over the next few months. There will be meetings that will take place regarding Haiti. The Bahamas will be at the table. And at the end of the day, whatever decision is made, we'll make sure that we have the resources for it, and that whatever decision and participation the Bahamas makes is in the best interest of the Bahamas. Said, listen, this impacts the Bahamas. We're not people are saying, oh, how do you take your resources when you have a crime dilemma? Well, this is a part of solving our crime dilemma, because the analysis, without going and saying too much, will show that being able to solve and assist in dealing with Turks and Caicos issue has a direct effect on us there. And so this directly impacts us. The opposition did an interesting thing and questioned it or chided it. And it just tells you when you're prepared to govern, when you're not. Because when you're prepared to govern, you understand that some of the ways of solving your problems here at home is being able to find the nucleus of the problem and solving it there. And we make decisions based on what we believe our intelligence tells us. And sometimes that means going outside of your country, in your region, to help fix the problem that eventually comes to your region. When you look at the analysis, you've seen it as journalists. When you look at some of the issues we face with gang violence, when we look at some of the murders, they're not just national. They're regional. These people move now throughout the region, not just in your territory. And so your investigation is no longer in New Providence. It's not even in the Bahamas. It's now in your neighboring countries. And that's what national. It's also regional. And that's what we're doing to be able to combat the root of this problem. Sure.
Yesterday there was a disaster management seminar at Bahamas. What is the country doing right now? What is this administration doing to help to combat natural disasters?
I'm glad you raised that point, because people often question Prime Minister's busyness international, that so much of us, particularly in the capital, are vulnerable, that if there is a sea surge, we're all at risk. That's why the administration is doing what it's doing internationally, because people are now just catching up to what we've been preaching and saying for the last year, and that is climate change to the world, to explain the importance of them understanding what position the Bahamas is in as a coastal nation. We will be in trouble in the years to come. That's why Prime Minister has championed in his crusade this climate change initiative worldwide, so that the Bahamas has never forgotten that all of the nations who are championing for the dollars to get relief are so important. That's why you see many people chiding and critiquing, oh, why is he speaking to these climate? What is that doing for the Bahamas? What it is doing, it is providing a future for the Bahamas, because all of the foundation that's being laid is going to reap dividends. It's going to reap the kind of partnership internationally that we need to save our country and to preserve our country. That is exactly why we have championed this climate change. Starting from a rainfall overnight, that's the reality of what we face. This is a clarion call, and it's an emergency call. And those who are criticizing it ought to get on board and recognize that they're also susceptible to it and vulnerable to it. Put the politics aside, and let's fight to preserve our country. That's what we're doing. Devontae, Eyewitness News TV, yes.
Good morning. The government to put away with the Price Control Commission, and if so, what is your position on that?
Our position is simply this. We are protecting our Bahamian people. That's why we have the Consumer Protection Agency. That's why we have price controls. Maybe they want price controllers to go away as well. They're there to protect you. Because a grocer and a wholesaler they're in business to do what? Make money. They're in business to make money. And so people naturally look at their bottom line and see, oh, even in inflation, how can we stay afloat and still make people in the positive direction? So there are always going to be times and seasons where people are going to push a little more. Remember, the gas wholesalers and retailers did the same thing. When gas prices were rising, they were pushing and agitating for government to give them a little more room. And government said, listen, you work with us, we'll give you some relief in other areas, but we're not going to put this in the back taxes. We're not going to do that. We're going to find a way that you always benefit. People were very concerned, even in this room, when gas prices were rising. And they were like, what is the government going to do? Well, the government did what it had to do. It sat and it talked. Something that people hadn't seen in years from administration. We understand both sides, but we find the way that both sides can benefit until there is some level of relief. And the same thing will happen here. Bahamian people need not worry about our companies and businesses to still grow and to still thrive. We're going to make sure you're able to survive. Anything else? Yes, go ahead.
So another question, going back to the issue of marital rape, obviously it's been actually reported. But we've also seen in court where there is no rape in marriage. So my question is, obviously on the back of that alarming statistics from the University of the Bahamas, is this government seriously going to do anything or introduce any new legislation to criminalize marital rape?
Well, let me clarify. You said the government is going to do anything seriously. We take everything we do about Bahamian people serious, first of all. We don't play around with people's lives. There are laws against rape. That's on the books now. Now it's up to the legal fraternity to decide how they will adjudicate cases. But if any crime is committed against a person, there are laws presently on the book that addresses and deals with that. We have to deal with what we have on the book now. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. When we talk about quote unquote marital rape, there have some other views. But now when you see the statistics, it's alarming and it's frustrating. Well, yeah, that's always been in existence. There's the data and the concern that people are saying it exists. And I always say to people, the government acts on behalf of the people. If there is a cry that says we want this done from the organizations that deal with women, that protect women, from the people that do that. But he can't govern a country based on his personal view. There has to be a methodical view to addressing the issues. You've heard the AG said that he plans on addressing it. He will do what he has to do from the Attorney General's office. But again, I say to people, a lot of the groups are quiet. A lot of the activist groups and the proposals of legislation to do it. But there has been review, and there will continue to be review because we want to make sure that people are protected and our laws are modern in 2022. But we function in tandem with the people who advocate for certain things. So it's not the government sitting back. The government moves based on there being advocacy for certain things, even while we address certain things on the legislative agenda and representatives. Reporters, not organizations. We heard it from reporters. And while that may sound loud, that's not the voice of the people, even though some people believe they are. We need the advocacy groups and the people who represent women to come forward and say, this is what we want, present their views, and it will happen. But there are discussions taking place at the cabinet level. There are discussions I into, and that's continuing to happen. But the cries of the organizations are what's missing. Not the reporters who are asking the questions every week, but the people who actually protect women and work with women. Silence. All right. Shelley Lewis, Global. Hi, Shelley.
Yeah, good morning, Clay. Good morning, everyone. Clay, we source in Farmer and Marshall from some 50 acres to over 200 plus. And it appears to be presenting certain problems to national security risk and an environmental issue to addressing this seriously perplexing problem, particularly with an environmental perspective.
Exactly what we've begun to do. We began to move in and address them. You would have remembered several months ago, I had here at the press conference a task force which was put together by the Minister of National Security, together with Defense Force, Immigration, and other agencies, the issue. You are now seeing the fruit of that. I think a lot of times we want things to happen instantly. We announce the task force, and by 4 o'clock, they got 100 people in custody. Doesn't always work that way, because you have to now, you are not violating any other laws, because these are still human beings. And it takes some time to do that. But you're now seeing the rewards of the benefits of being able to put a task force in place who will execute at certain times. That's going to continue. It's not a one-off. It's going to continue. The administration will address this issue. We will not, as some people have said, labeled it, kick the ball down, kick the can down the road. We're going to address it, but we have to do it in a way, because we know there are people in our country who will gladly go and get injunctions that they've done in the past, and it halts your whole operation. So it requires being able to methodically plan how to execute the plan to bring about the results. And you're seeing the result. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It will take some time to address this issue. But be sure about it, the administration, and they're addressing the issue. It will happen. And I know to a lot of our frustration, it's not happening fast enough, and people in Abaco are frustrated because they're seeing these things pop up. We're finding ways to address it. I believe, if you ask me, can it go faster? I was emerging to another community, a huge shantytown community. We want to ensure that it's addressed, and we're trying to address that, Shelley.
The concern of many residents, I don't want to say the agents just in particular, is that how is it that the government can allow, it's been done over a period of time.
Right. Let me tell you how. And I'll tell you this from my intelligence as a journalist on that very same story before I was in this place. And let me tell you what my intelligence shows, because I questioned the same thing. And that same town that you're talking about had just begun to start when we went and did investor thing. It's private land. And the private land is owned by people. And if you own your land, you can give somebody permission, or you can enter an agreement with people to be on your land. And guess what they do? For government to step in and tell somebody, no, you can't let them do that because it's not government's land. Now, you may say, there are regulations though. And that's where you come in, and that's where you try to fight from. The Ministry of Works Code of Building, which is not being followed. They ain't building them like how they used to build them anymore. They're livable homes now, because they're trying to do what they can to be able to follow. Now, when you run electricity from home to home by a wire and so forth, it brings in all kinds of violations, right? And that's when you bring in the authorities to try and address those issues. But that still doesn't mean you can go in there with a bulldozer at its feet without recognizing that there are Bahamians at the foundation of this issue, because they're making money off of these people desperate needs. And you will never see them come forward.
But much of it is government crown.
Understand that to police crown land, especially on these islands where there are thousands of acres, it's almost next to impossible, because you don't have the resources to do it. So when people say, oh, somebody on the crown land, you can go and do a check, and then if you find it, that's a process in itself. to have that person removed. We all would want to put together a deal and just go in and say, okay, we can deal with this ourselves. But it has to be a process that's followed. Can it move faster? I certainly believe it can move faster. Is there the will to see this a problem addressed? There is a will. And we know what we say, when there's a will, there's a way.
So where is the government's position with no new construction?
Right. Now, the thing about it is enforcement, right? We need enforcement. Because there are certain laws that have been put in place. There are certain conditions that have been put in place in these communities. So what we're trying to do now is be able to enforce on the particular community. Remember now, this is not the same area place where the injunction or where the requirements were put in place. You got to now relocate and go through the same process again. And that's why I said the initiative has begun. It's taking a lot longer, but there is a will to see the problem addressed. And we're working through it. But we have many challenges, more than you can imagine happen. And I think the people of the Bahamas can rest assured that we are on the side to ensure that our laws aren't violated. And we feel the pain of the people in Abaco particularly. We feel it because you have Bahamians who are waiting to get crown land, to do stuff legally and to build their economies, build their businesses, and they can't, but they see other people just go and just do what they want to do. We have to. Any other questions?
Initiatives toward economic recovery by Bahamas, have they been slowed for any reason?
Not slowed, but just trying to ensure that whatever relief effort is put in place is effective. Grandma knows the Prime Minister, even before he became Prime Minister, he is very committed that if he gives his word on something, seeing it come to fruition. And he is working. Let me say this, Prime Minister is working daily behind the scenes to fix the issues surrounding Grand Bahama. It takes a while, Minister, so we know that he has a will, and he's definitely going to make a way to get it done.
The Disney project,
The Disney in Louvre. We'll hopefully get an update for you on that. There has been some progress on that. Director of Investments, we'll talk with her and get an update for you at our next sitting. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Let's move on now to Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture. Our good minister has come, and I appreciate him readjusting his schedule. And there are some people who will speak to us, and so I'm going to call him now to do that. Thank you, Minister.
Good morning, everybody. Now let's get back to some exciting and things and stress relieving stuff. The Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, in an effort to stimulate public interest in the visual and performing, the Commission will host its first event, the Cultural Awards, an event on an evening of drums honoring John Berkeley Peanuts Taylor, Bahamian icon and culture ambassador. This event will take place on Friday, the 21st of October, 2022. I fully support the efforts of the Cultural Commission as they promote programs that should have been over the years and strongly endorses any effort by the Commission to show appreciation to those who made a valuable contribution to Bahamian culture. As stated in our Blueprint for Change, there is much power in the culture and the visual arts community that can cause the bumps from this commission to do just that. And without further ado, I will now invite the chair of the commission who will give you more details on this event that will honor Mr. Peanuts Taylor. Thank you.
For your fortitude and your wisdom in understanding that the world has changed and there's what we call a new orange economy. And the Bahamas, in order to be timely, we must move with the rest of the world. So we must do a lot to catch up where the Bahamas ought to be. Mind you, we used to be there many years ago, but at the Margaritaville Beach Resort, the venue is significant in that those of you who are as young as I am would know that would have been the last location of the world-famous Drumbeat Club, which was owned and operated by Peanuts Taylor. Irving of, it would be nice at that location. Of course, you know, we now have the Tiki Hut and we have the Point on those grounds. The event will not only just mention Mr. Taylor, but there will be honorable mention of several other Bahamian cultural icons. Liz Coakley, the great T. Coakley from the T Connection, Priscilla Rawlings, the Independence Morning Queen, and of course, the Portia Nottage, then Portia Butterfield Nottage, who was an iconic figure for the transition of big bands in the Bahamas. You remember the from the high voltage and notorious for their contribution to culture in this country, starting from the great Chippy Chipman and Becky Chipman. She would be a sister and also princess. A lot of Bahamians are not aware, but she is from that era as well, and she has trailblazed the fire dance along chairmen. In addition to that, because this award is the first of its kind, we wanted to backtrack a bit, bring the past to the present. And so we had to mention those who have gone on. And so we will be mentioning, giving special consideration, Roy Duke Hanna, Gus Cooper, Lee Callender, who just passed, and recently he will be going home. His going home service will be the day following this event. Count Bernardino, the one and only, Vincent Buttercup Ferguson, Corinne Harris Shalimar, who is the mother of our great Ali Berg, Ezra Hepburn, King Pedro, and Deacon Viley, who is missing from this list. If you do not know those names, you must go and Google them, because these are the persons who have created the part and set the tone for those of us that are here today. We also hope to, so at the awards, we'll be telling the brief, in a brief way, because we would need a very long time to tell his full, true contribution. You know, I don't think there's another Bahamian during that era, or even now, that would have been on European television at a time when persons of our color were not allowed to let black boy from over the hill. It amazes me how young Bahamians do not know who their true heroes are. So something has to be done, and know that the commission will be addressing that in short. They're also singing, and of course we all know Veronica, who is also, in my opinion, a sustaining entertainer. She would have been also in one of the drum beats shows. And it seems to me that she got artists can be even at senior citizen age. She killed me for that. But let me also point out to you that the show, Mr. Taylor, and what we're doing in the commission is right. I produced that show. And of course, the last King Eric show on the Cable Beach, I was also the choreographer, producer for that show. So when I talk about these people, I know them intimately, and I know the significance of their contribution and what they mean to the Bahamas. I don't want to get too deep into any project I produce. You will see a taste of the past. You will see the present, but you will see the future. You will always see in some way the passing of the baton. That has to happen. Why? Because we, the artists, can accomplish that. Now, tickets, the donation are only $100. You can make donations even if you're not attending, because as you know, a lot is involved in the production of this. And I won't say this, but I am sure my minister will ensure that it will be financed. If we can pay $100 on the world's map, no advertisement could help us other than Bahamians themselves and what they do and what they project in Bahamian culture. A ticket drive will be on Saturday, which is the 15th at the Tiki Hut. So stop by, get your Children's and Entertainers Union, the Bahamas National Art Gallery, Lana's Interior Design, or from any artists who may be participating in the show. Along with me, I have some of the persons representing the commission, and I'm very passionate about it, as you can tell. Young Bahamian Troy, I love this guy, and exposing our culture. We must also give room to our creatives. Not everybody could sing calypso, jonkanoo, or gombe. So what's happening? We are a country of inclusion, and the world has gone mesh and international now. We must prepare our artists to do the same. And he's wanting that I have this audience, so print my good. Make sure I look slim, right? You know this. You need to hear this. If you could just quickly just say something to them so they can understand the passion.
Well, good morning, everybody. For those who don't know, Bahamian Trey is my stage name, and since we're in this government building, my government name is Atreyu Davis. But I wanted to just speak quickly about what and having us on our back, Mr. Penis Taylor, was that. In my studies, going deep into our discography and everything, I realized that Mr. Peanuts Taylor has accomplished so many great things, from being honored in Cuba, from, being just a part of the model that we call tourism, because he traveled around the world marketing the Bahamas. That is literally what he did. So seeing this history of people who were amazing in not just their own personal endeavors, but to put the country, on their back. He was a part of that. A part of bringing Bahamian music to what we have it as today, what we enjoy, Gumbe. He was a big by it, because I know that George Simmons had a lot. That's another big story we could talk about, the many great things that he's done. So someone like Peanuts Taylor, I'm even honored to say that I got a chance to meet him. And I'm even happier to know that we're getting a chance to honor him while he's here.
Coley, and it is definitely an honor and a pleasure to be here just to speak about the measure of the man. I know him personally. I've been in his house when the hurricane come and blew off his roof, and I look up and I said, wow. So it's definitely an honor. He has contributed so much culturally to the arts of this man, because trust me, culture in this country needs to be elevated once again. It has made us great. People came from all over the world just in the small Bahamas. They would pass Florida just to come to the Bahamas. And we have promoted the Bahamas.
In other words, the Bahamas is a big thing. All right? And we can hear more about what big a thing it is, right? All right. So at this time, are there any questions? Or we said it all? No? Sure.
Once again, we are here on two initiatives. The second initiative we are here for is educating. People want to know, what is educating. Educating is a lower level of racing that started some years ago prior to COVID, but it stopped. It was already started on the police force. It also teaches them road traffic safety. It's a form of sports that is now at the Olympic level. And yes, the Bahamas has a team that will be leaving next week, I think, to compete in the educating Olympic. So we finally get some other disciplines on the Olympic. We will give you a further update on the team and educating as relates to where we go from here in the Bahamas. Also want to make a statement as educating is also the beginning of us, this administration want to bring speed weekends here. It's like regatta in car. That's the best way I could say. And so we want to, and those who know what it was like in the 50s and before my time, we want to bring it back to New Providence and Grand Bahamas. So, Ms. Suzanne, you want to come and give us more details on that?
To talk about this, I want to use your phrase, the past. Well, the past. You all were there at the Speed Week, not everybody. The Prime Minister, the Minister, and certainly us bring this back, but we want to make it bigger than it ever was. We're going to invite Sir Lewis Hamilton. We have some other Formula One Grand Prix stars who said they would come to the Bahamas. Now, this is within our medium-term vision, as a lot of other things. Now, the short-term vision is something like this. And I thank you, Press Speaker, for making this available with us today. That's how cards look like. We have currently pretty good race cars on the island. Alan Burrows flew them in by plane. I would like to give them around. So yeah, churches like Bishop Lawrence Road, Bishop Walter Henschel, and so on, as well as government schools. We have a hub in the BTVI. Come because they want to race a kart. And they sign up for that. We take them in for free, depending from which area they come, to give the kids a maximum of opportunities. We do have that for sure with track and field, with swimming, basketball, you name it, baseball, and so on. But there are a lot of kids who fought with the system, especially during the pandemic. Now they need something else. And every kid is like zoomed into this car. They want to race that car, so we say, okay, let's do an education program, which we do. David McLaughlin, with whom I do this together, is the president of the Bahamas Motorsports Association. I'm the vice president. We represent the FIA in the Bahamas. That is the Federal International Automobile Association. That is in 149 countries. Out of these, more than 80 will be present at the Motorsports Olympics, where we will be with Team Bahamas. I have the name of the team for whoever would like to later have the name of the team. If I may give this out, so Minister, you have that. So everybody has the name. COVID. One of them is in Team Bahamas, and we are very proud of that. But she is an excellent individual from the character, but especially representing the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. And at the opening ceremony, more than 80 countries have all the media over there. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell you about it, and hopefully you watch this somehow too. It will be on social media just as well for them. The new president of the FIA is from Dubai, a wonderful person really, who personally knows about our project, supports us, and is looking forward to meeting anybody. And he wants to come to the Bahamas as well. That was the first time since the past. We brought it into the present. We will do it next year, not only in the Bahamas, but in the entire Caribbean. We bring in a new sport called cross cars for you to race, your age group, my age group, whoever. Sorry to say that. So it's not only about the youth. We're going to up the capability here, and it's like a big kart, like as you see in the books. It's a huge kart, like for adults with a road cage, but it's going to be practiced in the bush, and of this we have enough. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force wants to put edu-karting and then be in Nassau, especially it will be in Grand Bahama, and the small ones as well. They said so and offered it to take them over the carts by the boats, and they will assist us this. We already in the past, we trained the trainer of the Defense Force of the next year is bringing back the Speed Week revival. Any questions?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. And of course, we're excited to have another sports element added to sports. We encourage all of you to businesses that are making a difference. Many of them started out of the pandemic. We've been highlighting them here. And today we highlight a company called Cupcakes by Q. And of course, the owner of that is Q-Tel Johnson. I'm going to call Q-Tel to come and tell us about her Cupcakes by Q. And then you get to...
I am 28 years old. I've been doing this business for 7 years now. Inspired by a friend, it immediately become my passion. I specialize in different flavor cupcakes by Q-Tel Johnson, and my phone number is 423-6213. Thank you.
Tell them what they have up front today.
Well, chocolate chip cookies, oatmeal cookies, cupcakes.
Thank you, Q-Tel, and of course, I'm sure we'll enjoy it. That's our press conference for this week. If you have any questions,